Okay, I'm back. My phone can only record for about 22 minutes, and some readings, they take longer, and I don't think you can really tell the cards how long you want the reading to last. So sometimes you can say, I've only got a few minutes, but this one bears a bit of a deeper look. So yeah, so what we've got here is the Tower hanging overhead, clinging onto things, and also fearing loss of their power because they're feeling judged. They could be judged in a bad way and lose their power. Temperance, we've got Temperance on this end. Yes, I was right about that. Card 14 is Temperance, and Temperance on the next step. So the next step is definitely going to be looking at things and balancing things. So I think they looked at things and balanced out the pros and cons of maybe accepting the help or ignoring any knowledge of the help, not really turning a blind eye to it in the past. And that's going to come back and bite them on the bum. Excuse my French. The truth is going to come out. It is all a facade, the LNP. Who got left out in the cold? The wish card, the wishes of the Australian public. Look, unlike voting is mandatory in Australia. You can get fined if you don't vote. You don't have to vote in your local government elections, but you do have to vote in state elections and federal elections. So this spread for me indicates that yes, there may have been some Russian influence in the election. And to my mind, there's two ways you can influence an election. Direct interference in the voting process, which, while I'm not going to say that's impossible, I think it would be a bit harder with Australia because of our paper ballot system, or the interference by influence. I was surprised to hear that it was only prior to this election and very close to this election that it was made illegal for campaigns to accept contributions from foreign nationals and foreign governments, foreign corporations. I would have thought that it would have been illegal. It's illegal in the US, and I don't know about England and all that, but for Australia, it only just before this election, it's been made illegal. So that's very interesting. Brings to mind Pauline Hanson and her flirting with the NRA. I'll probably do a reading on her later. But at the moment, I am going to have a look at the two ways in which Russia could have interfered, the two most obvious ways, could have interfered with the Australian elections. It's just going to be a quick 5-carder. Situation, challenge, and guidance, focus, and outcome. So I'll do this quickly. Like I said, I'm not very good at it. I am better at it with the big cards than I am with the smaller ones. So even though, as you can see, I'm not the best, that is at least a bit more of a shake-up. And so. Okay. You might have noticed a bit of change in the background. The door's gone. I've moved the table round close to the window because I do like natural light. It's very overcast here and all that, but I do like as much natural light as possible when I'm doing reading. So yes, I do have the light on up here, but I also moved it so that the natural light is coming in onto the table. Yeah. So looking first, interfering with the voting process itself. Did Russia do that? The moon. This is a no card, but it's also a card of confusion, and it's also a card of secrets coming to light. We'll know more as the spread goes. The challenge to this, which is this card here, karma, wheel, completion. That's not quite sure what to make of that yet. That karma is a challenge to the moon, or destiny is a challenge to the moon. Maybe they're destined not to be able to do that because of the way our actual voting system works. We'll find out a bit more. Next is guidance. This is on the other three. The Eight of Wands. Communication, things happening fast. We have a relatively quick tallying process. And we don't combine state with federal elections. They are separate. And we don't combine ballot measures onto our system. We vote for the House of Reps and the Senate. And we vote for the person who is the member for our district. The House of Reps and the Senate. So 2 ballot papers. One's for the House of Reps and one's for the Senate. And yes, they changed it a little bit, so you had to write a little bit more, but it's still a lot quicker to count up than the multi-layered system of the American system. So I think that's interesting that things happen a bit faster. This is in the guidance. So I think looking at things very quickly is what they should do, and looking at things straight away. Don't look after the fact to see if there's any indication of interference. You look as you go. You look at things quickly. You don't let things sit still. The focus of this, the Princess of Swords, the disappointing news, or the cuckoo in the nest, the spy. I think people were on the lookout for it, for such things, during the tallying and the voting. And the fact is that the voting and the tallying is done at the actual polling booth. It's not all taken away to a centre and run through the thing. It's done at the actual polling booth. I've had friends who've done both state and federal elections, and they have very, very long nights because they have to go through all the votes and tally them there. So because it's done quickly, any cuckoo on the nest would be pretty easy to spot, I think. And it's just, and they're watched. They are watched. Someone is watching them count. Someone is watching them. So it wouldn't be easy for somebody to get in there and slip in votes. It'd be very hard. They are watched like hawks. And the outcome, the Ace of Cups, it's emotional. That's interesting. Did they interfere in the election? This is no. Aces are generally yeses, but it's the whole deck was upside down, so these cards didn't come out as reversals. I'll get a clarifier on that. The outcome was, it was still emotional. People were still upset at the outcome, whether or not there is interference or not. The Hierophant, the government, and Judgment. It was an emotional outcome, but the incumbent government was judged to have won. So no, I don't think they interfered through the voting process itself. The other way is interference through influence. Facebook providing money for these negative ads, putting up independent negative ads. One of the things that happened, whoopsie daisy, just previous to, I'll pick that card up later and use another deck to clarify. Just previous to the election was that this whole big campaign came up out of nowhere with inheritance and death tax. The Labor are going to not only look at your negative gearing and look at this and look at that, and yes, they were going to look at a few things that, you know, to do with retiring and all that, but they're going to take all your money, most of your money, in a death tax. So if you die, they'll take most of the money and your family won't get anything. That was a complete and utter lie. They had never at any stage were they at any stage going to implement such a tax. And it came up in the last week or so of the election, when a lot of people ignore the ads for weeks beforehand, and in that last week, because for the 48 or 36 hours before the election, they're not allowed to have any ads playing. So in the last few days the ads are playing, they'll go and they'll start taking note of the ads. Some people who are new voters might go and check out the policies and all that, which is good. I mean, look at the policies pages and everything. But, yeah, a lot of them just start looking at the ads in the last week. That's their form of research. Which, yeah. My personal opinion on that sort of research is my personal opinion. It's lazy. Deck was upside down. So we'll look at interference by influence. Did Russia play a role in that? And what have we got here? The Five of Cups. Loss. The role they did play resulted in loss. So we're going to use the same spread. Card 1. Six of Wands, victorious. Did they play a role in by interference by influence? Yes. Six of Wands, victorious. And they won. You know, the LNP won. They were victorious at that, and this is also a yes card. The challenge that they had was, this is a victory card, it's a yes card. They overcame whatever challenges they had, whether it was technical or, but the challenge they had was getting enough of it out there, doing it in a timely manner. It's not just getting it all out there at once. If you get it all out there at once, people look at it and then ignore it and forget it. You've got to keep doing it. So the Chariot here is travelling. It's travelling along the path, and every now and then when you're travelling on a journey, you make a stop. You let people know what you're doing. You let people know what you're doing. So it was sort of like they took this path. First stop, first lot of ads, first lot of Facebook posts. Let it wander a little bit more, wander along a bit more, a bit closer bit closer to the election, second stop, next dumping of information, and so on and so forth. The guidance that they had on that, their guidance. We want you to make people look at the LNP, at Labor differently. We want you to take people who are pretty open to their party and make them look at us as the better party. We want you to change their perspective. That's the guidance they were given. The focus, Princess of Wands, action. Their focus was to take new action. You know, and it was a new process. So their focus was to take action, to start the action and to keep it going. And the outcome, of course, was celebration for... That's very interesting. Anyway, I'll explain that in a minute. Celebration for the LNP. Now, our Parliament House, our new House of Parliament, has a sort of it sort of looks flat, but it's got also this conical type of influence and a peak coming up out of it. So this is definitely victory for the LNP in getting into Parliament, okay, in taking over Parliament. Now I'll use my unvarnished truth card because I dropped the other card and it's not quite as simple to get there from the other deck. So and we'll have a look at I'm interested in this Princess of Wands, the beginning of new actions. Yeah, taking action to make sure that the LNP win at all cost. This is the winning of all cost card. We say the Hangman, were they, well, I think it answers itself, the question I'm asking, but were they successful in making people, neutral people, steering them towards the LNP? How successful were they? They had good news about that. So yeah, they were successful. They had good news for the LNP about that. And I'm going to ask, was Facebook a major player in their information drops? Did they use Facebook a lot? Because that's apparently been one of their biggest and baddest weapons of choice to influence people. So remember the journey, stopping and making information drops. Did they use Facebook a lot? Oh yes, they used Facebook to shine a light on their message. Did they use Twitter? Ten of Wands. Twitter's got too much going on, too much happening. Twitter would have been an added burden that they didn't really need. Facebook was their main tool here. And one more question that I'm going to ask that is separate. Did they contribute funds to LNP candidates? Did Russia contribute make monetary contributions to LNP candidates? Justice. Justice is a yes card. It's interesting that that's a yes card that would come up, because justice indicates yes, they did and it could indicate they were justified. And you know what? Because it wasn't made illegal until just before the election, any time before that, they would have been justified in doing it because it wasn't against the law in Australia to do that. That's been changed now, but it only happened a few weeks before the election, or a couple of months before the election. So yes, they did contribute money. They weren't breaking the law. They were justified to do so at that stage. They wouldn't be now. Well, this is going to be a long reading, but it's an interesting subject. So I might be, split it into two, part one and then part two. So anyway, I will be looking at, there's been some talk about Clive Palmer being used as a tool in LNP winning, and I will do a reading on that in the near future. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for listening, and please click like and subscribe.